Okay, time for another live edition of Lead Better. That's the live opportunity to talk about today's field note from Admired Leadership. Then it goes out into on demand, and you can watch or listen in many other places. We're excited you're here. And today's topic is actually the thing that we actually do. And you're like, well, what do you mean about that? Well, there is this practice that they have at Amazon. You've heard about it, where they all sit down and read silently for like a half an hour, and they discuss the 6-page memo they read. So the question in the headline of the field note is, should you ask your team members to read before discussions? Good question. We're kind of in a reading deficient environment. Mikey's joining us again from the cruise ship. What day of the cruise is it here, Mikey?
We are on day 6 of 7. So
Right.
Tomorrow morning, they call it a day, but it's really just about an hour that we're on the boat before
right.
they kick us off.
They kick you off. Have you gotten a lot of reading done on the long tour?
No, we've actually seen quite a bit of Iceland on the days that we're here. So not as much reading, more walking around and touring. And it's a beautiful country. It really is.
Yeah, fantastic. So I've heard of this practice that Amazon does. I'm sure you've heard of this practice that Amazon does. And I did search around for one specific thing. Is there any other company that has successfully duplicated the Amazon culture of having everybody read a 6-page memo for a half an hour silently before they talk about it? And as best I can tell, there have been people that have tried it, but there's not another real world example where this has worked. So the question is, are there still things to learn? Are there still things we could do in our own organizations that would be beneficial from this example?
Well, that itself is a lesson, right?
Yeah, I think so.
What is it when we see other people who their best practices internally, and they're a successful company, they've made a lot of money, they've dominated in their space. So it feels naturally, well, we should definitely do that. But you got to understand these are tactics, right? If it's not part of your strategy, it's not part of your goals and objectives, then you really shouldn't necessarily just layer on a tactic unless it actually works for you. So what I like best about this field note is we're really talking about what is the objective? Why are we thinking? And based upon objective, what should our strategy be? And then if the tactic fits, well, I think it's worth examining for our own organizations. Yeah. On the other hand, it might just be fun to kind of think through tactically why it works for them.
Well, I said that this actual field note is what we're doing, because we actually do a live discussion every day and create a conversation around the day's field note. You don't have to have read the field note, hopefully, to get something out of these conversations that we've been doing daily for a couple of years. But maybe it helps out if you actually read the field note, you thought about it a little bit during the day, or maybe you read it and you hadn't thought about it since then, but later in the day, oh, well, here's a thing I can dive into either live or later. And so does this help? Does the fact that you actually read the field note, and I edit the field notes after Randall writes them mostly, and then you take another pass at that, and then we all look at that. So even getting ready to do this, usually we'll review it or look at it. We don't compare notes. And we come, hopefully, to the exercise of this 15 minutes a little bit prepared. Now, you don't have to do 30 minutes of study. And it's not like we would, in fact, it would be fun if we just did a Lead Better. We're like, all right, everyone, for the next 5 minutes, we're all going to read the field note for 5 minutes silently. And then we just worked along together in silence. We should try that sometime. I'm not sure what the benefit would be, but you see my point. Hopefully, Lead Better works better because people have read the field note.
Right. And if you haven't read the field note and you're just about, and we have had people in the comments say that exact thing. I'm not very good with the email. I don't really read it all that much, but I like the way that I digest it with the two of you talking about the idea, right? And that's fine. But what's the advantage of having it written out is really, there's a couple of things. And we mentioned this in the field note if you haven't read it. But the idea of actually putting things into writing is a good practice. And so
for sure,
Jeff as a leader says, I want my team to be good writers. And so he has them reading and writing for 4 hours a day on average. Like that's a tremendous discipline. But what is the advantage of writing that we've seen from a lot of different people who've done it is that it causes you to be able to frame your thinking in such a way where you are now explaining things to yourself.
Sure. Yeah.
If you're
Now
just going to
that,
come to a presentation and wing it, you're not having it as thought out as if you've had to write it down.
oh yeah. Now that lesson is for the person that wrote the memo for everyone to read silently before the meeting. Beneficial, right? You're going to be much more clear. And this came out of Jeff Bezos's aversion to slide decks. It was, I don't need all of this. Let us just read it through. Now we'll have a much better discussion. And it wasn't a pre-read, right? It wasn't the idea that we're going to send it out. It was, let's all sit. And I guess there's probably a little bit of the SAT effect here, which is like, am I trying to be like, oh, in 6 minutes, I'm done. Everybody else, right. Let's see how long it takes for them to read this thing, right? Yeah, those idiots. But I'm ready. I'm making my notes on exactly how I'm going to break this thing apart. So, I mean, I don't know if that dynamic actually I've never been inside a meeting in Amazon. They're fairly tenacious over there. But you can see the point, which is, all right, if we actually don't fake it, because you can say, we sent the pre-read out. Oh, yeah, I took a look at the pre-read, meaning I glanced at it for 15 seconds, and now I'm going to try to just make my way through. That doesn't work in the sort of inquiry-based dialogues where you come into the classroom and the professor's grilling you on what you read. Now, we're not going to have that in a corporate meeting where the CEO probably is going to be like, all right, Mikey, on page 4, there was that thing in paragraph 3. Give me your analysis of that. I don't know that anybody's going through that scenario. But yet, we all know we would have a better discussion if we wrote things down like this and read them like this. The question is it a normative thing or is it an occasional thing? It wouldn't have to, you couldn't do this for every meeting. You would get nothing done, right?
Right. Yeah, I think that's true. My nephew went to a college where most of his education was done in this way. They had cohorts of 16 people that they would move through all of their classes. So their classes were always 16 people. It was always the same 16 people. And whether it was history or their version of math that they were doing or whatever they were studying, it was always that 16 people. And there weren't professors. There were proctors, right? And so when I said, how in the world do you do a college algebra class that works like that? And he said, well, it's our job to come to class, and there's 4 different lessons that are assigned. We have to read them. And if our name is drawn out of the hat, we have to teach that lesson. We have to explain it in the way that we know.
You got to be ready.
So it's very embarrassing if we don't do it, and there's a lot of shame in there. And our grade is not even necessarily how well we participated in the class participation is the best part. Like whether or not we really understood the concept or taught it well isn't. Yeah. But our grade at the end of the semester is all about class participation, and so it became very obvious who was winging it and who wasn't very quick, especially in a class like algebra.
Yeah. Well, I do think that then this idea that you see what happens when real learning is happening, or what's happening when higher quality decisions are made. I think the answer is not, do you wholesale adopt it? Maybe you get there, but certainly you can do things that test the waters to see what would work for your organization or for yourself. You could even do this in families. Like, hey, and we sometimes talk about the idea in Admired Leadership of asking the kind of question that lingers. Like, hey, when we get together for dinner, we're going to have the whole group and we're going to have spaghetti on Sunday night. I'd like to talk about this. If you reflect on that a little bit, just getting everybody to think about it ahead of time probably leads to a better discussion. So I even know that when you're talking about reading, my 82-year-old mother was visiting recently, and we were talking about a particular book that she had actually read on Kindle, I believe, and I had the actual book there, and she was picking up the actual book, and I had actually read it and underlined different sections, and she was saying, I don't remember this from the Kindle version. I don't remember. There's something different about when you're tactically reading the book. And at least for me, and I don't mind, I'm not against, I'm for anything that gets people to read more, right? I actually have a big sign over here that says read more books. It's a pennant, from Oxford Pennant, great Buffalo company. And and so she just was realizing, like I do, which is when I read a physical book, I retain more of it. I like writing in them. I don't keep them precious anymore. Nobody's going to come 20 years from now and be like, he marked up all these books. Like nobody, my own kids won't look at that like when I'm gone. Right. And so it's like, well, do the thing that when you go back through or a review makes that thing pop. Well, that happens. We're doing this on Substack. We publish on Substack. We do the live conversation on Substack. I subscribe to 155 different Substacks. I've confessed that Substack is the casino to my actual addiction. And one of those Substack creators has a thing that they put into their Substack every time, which is, you can print this out. Like they actually say, would you like to, will they make a button that helps you get more quickly so that you're not reading on a device, that you can read that Substack printed out because it's a different experience.
Are those usually longer form essays? Those printable ones?
That's all. It's all the ones that they do. Any one that they do. Do you want to read this instead in a tactile form, which is a great experiment. I don't think I've ever printed one of them out. I should have. Right. I would bet if you tested my experience around their view of the world, and it's not like a test like did I remember the 6 points? It's did you get into that world? Right. So there you go. Now, we do know that people who read field notes, again, you don't have to read it to enjoy the conversation. We do this only because we enjoy it. The fact that if you happen to enjoy it too, great.
Right.
But our founder was recently, I believe, at a golf tournament, which is something that this strange world that he's very involved in. And somebody came up and they had printed out field notes and laminated them. Because I think they heard he was going to be there and asked him to sign them.
Oh, no.
That's another way to go about it.
Yeah. Okay, so here's an advantage of this technique. There's a meme out there in the business world, particularly around this should have been an email, right?
Yeah,
and
right.
So if that is a consistent complaint organization, be something that will help to eliminate people saying that, right? If you have to write a 6-page memo, that kind of defends what it is that you're there for. And maybe it's a decision-making who are meeting all together because it's a brainstorm of some sort.
Mikey's freezing up a little bit there on the boat as they circle around Iceland. I'm not exactly sure in what corner of Iceland they are.
This should have been an email.
All right. Well, I think so. And Mikey, we've been doing great for 12 minutes, and it's okay if we just go a minute or two early. But you did freeze up here on the last part of it, so I'll give a summary thought. And if we're able to hear your summary thought, then great. And by the way, I know we don't have, of the 179 countries where Field Note readers are, we don't have anyone in Greenland. I don't know exactly where we are in terms of subscribers in Iceland, but you could go visit them. You could probably email them, from the subscriber list and find out. And we're glad that you're all here. Now, I think that some feedback, on this, if anybody has ever tried this, something beyond here's a pre-read. If you ever were maybe you don't do it all the time, but when you have the offsite and everybody sits in the same room and they read the document and now we're gonna have a discussion. I don't know that you go 30 minutes out of the gate because you wouldn't say to everybody in the organization, we're all gonna run a marathon today, right? You would probably break everybody into it bit by bit. So I think we can take steps to become more of a contemplative culture in our organizations where we do prioritize and elevate the idea of writing, composition, thinking things through clearly, and then sharing in that. And maybe we have better discussions. And in the meantime, we'll let the Amazon people do it. But, as I said, I don't think that you have to feel guilty that you're not doing it. You can do lessons to try. And I do think that that's a thing that is something that we all, in this sort of lifelong learner mode that we're in, trying to get better at leadership and personal productivity and all that. Don't get into the cycle where you're just beating yourself up. Well, we don't do it like that. We probably should do it like that. Just start doing some things that test out some of these ideas. That's what Field Notes, that's what it's all about. That's what Lead Better is all about. We thank you for joining us here and for the live edition. And if you're listening later, grateful to you as well. We'll see you in the next edition.